Hello, today I'd like to share some of the work we've been doing in applying machine learning to a large data set generated by an audiology clinic in Western Australia. We particularly paid attention to those who were audiometrically normal. Now you may ask who are audiometrically normal, and it depends on your definition. When I looked at over 20,000 clients just at their thresholds between 500 and 2,000 hertz, 21%, 1 in 5, had all their thresholds below 20 dBHL. If I included 4,000 hertz, that percentage dropped down to about 11%, and then including 8,000 hertz for both ears, the figure dropped down to about 7%. Our questions were, what differentiates those who are audiometrically normal from those with hearing loss? And are those who are audiometrically normal, let's say they have subjective hearing loss, are they a homogeneous group? These are the data that we were able to collate from over 23,000 people, the demographics, their self-report of their hearing, particularly the effect of their hearing loss or the hearing impairment on their quality of life, the thresholds, speech in quiet scores and speech and noise scores, some measures of their tinnitus. We also ask about the psychosocial effect of their hearing difficulties on life, and also the willingness to take action, whether it was from 1 not willing to take action through to 10 being willing to take action today. These are the classifications we looked at. Firstly, those who had all their thresholds in both ears between 500 and 8,000 at 20 dB or below, and they were further subdivided into those with high hearing ability scoring 8 to 10, and those with low hearing ability 1 to 7. These are about equal groups. We use two ways to analyze them. First of all, with descriptive statistics and Pearson's chi-squared or Mann-Whitney, depending on the variable. And then we used XGBoost as a machine learning algorithm, and then SHAP values to help with the interpretation. There were a lot of missing data, and that's ideal for machine learning applications, and they also deal really well with nonlinear relationships. Onto the results. Those who had subjective hearing loss were more likely to be female. There were still 15% of those with normal hearing who had speech in noise scores which were not normal. They were more likely than those with hearing loss to have tinnitus, lateral tinnitus in only one ear, and for it to be bothersome. They weren't as willing to take action, but they were still mid-range with a score of 5. And there was still 32% of those with subjective hearing loss who reported some impact on their mental well-being. Just looking then at that group with subjective hearing loss, the high versus the low hearing ability, there were still 11% with high hearing ability who had speech and noise scores which were not normal. They were also more likely to have unilateral tinnitus, but have lower awareness of it. They certainly weren't as motivated, but they were still motivated to a medium score of 3.5. And they were less likely than those with a low hearing ability to report psychosocial impacts, but there was still about 20% who did. Applying then machine learning, there are two main outcomes that are presented. One is the feature importance, which could be equated very loosely to p-values in a regression analysis, and then SHAP values, which could be equated to effect size. In summary, hearing loss asymmetry and speech and noise scores were strong drivers to differentiate between the two groups. Moderate drivers were the psychosocial effects and their speech in quiet scores. The model itself was fairly accurate at 83%. Going then to those who had low hearing ability versus those with high hearing ability with normal thresholds, what differentiated the two were the quality of life measures, including the psychosocial effects of their hearing impairment. A moderate driver was their motivation. Sex and AB words, the story is a bit mixed between the importance and the SHAP values, so there appears to be some interaction between these and other factors. The model itself was not as accurate at 67%. What it did show us in summary is that for those people who have normal thresholds, speech and noise is a problem. They do report an impact of their hearing impairment on their daily life, on their mental well-being. They're more likely to be females. Obviously, they're a bit younger, and they're more likely to report tinnitus. So there's no reason to invalidate their concerns. And then, of course, as was just mentioned, to differentiate those with high hearing ability from low hearing ability, there was a greater impact on the psychosocial health and the quality of life if they had a low hearing ability. They were more motivated if they had a low hearing ability. And this raises the spectre of whether extended high frequencies are playing a role here when you consider they have speech and noise problems. And some preliminary investigations that I did on the data we have shows that indeed we can separate those with high hearing ability and low hearing ability on the basis of their extended high frequency. What does this mean? I will repeat myself here. We should not dismiss the reports that people have of their hearing difficulties, even if their audiogram is normal. They do report an impact on their daily life. They're frustrated. Hearing and noise is probably the big contributor, as is tinnitus. And these people, perhaps not as motivated as those who've got let's say, a real hearing loss, but they definitely are still motivated, and they're not all the same. So one take-home message is that speech and noise testing should be done. Often it's not. This is AB word test speeching in quiet is not. And as clients often report, you're testing me in a sound booth in a quiet room. That's not where I live my life. Can you please test me in something that's more realistic? And so we do have to consider alternatives to hearing aids, whether it's hearables, further counselling, managing the tinnitus, the use of assistive listening devices, and reviewing them regularly. Thank you for your attention.